Well, good morning, Sunshine. I'm glad to have you here. Today I'm going to talk about knitting needles, the different kinds, the different materials, and how to tell what you found in the bottom of your bin or in your neighbor's bin if you happen to be gifted a random assortment. These first ones that I have are a plastic set that I got in a You Can Learn to Knit kit. They're very flexible, which is nice. They're only 7 inches long, as you can see from my measurement, that and that end. They're 7 inches long, which is very, very short for a regular knitting needle, but perfect if you're going to make something small like a scarf or a washcloth. They are also US size 7, which is 4.5 millimeters, which is written on the end of each stopper. The knitting needle is made up of a point. That's the end you put the stitches on. That's the end you use for the actual stitching. The shaft, or the needle itself, and then the stopper, which keeps it from flying off the end. The stitches catch this, and then they can't go any further. Needles come in a variety of materials. These are some of my aluminum needles, well organized as you can see. The problem with getting thin, long needles is that they tend to bend. I'm holding it flat in each end, and it's turning and demonstrating that it looks like a jump rope. It is just bent. I made a heavy sweater on it, and it bent the needles as it weighed it down. I hold it here, and it would bend with the weight. These are a size 4. Wow. Where's the camera? There we go. It's hard to get the right angle so that you can see that it is a size 4. They are both bent, one worse than the other. Boya brand needles tend to have this flat end stopper. It's a piece of metal that's spot welded onto the aluminum. There's a little spot there. And I haven't had the stoppers come off, but I know it's possible for the stoppers to come off. And they're usually pretty good and sharp. Not so sharp that you damage yourself, but sharp enough that if you're using too fine of a yarn, it will split. Even the bigger ones, you can see, have a nice point to them. With Boya needles, you'll tell what size they are by looking at this back end. Sometimes it lists the millimeters. This one has both the US size and the millimeters. Boya is the brand. 5 in the middle is the US size, and then 3.75 millimeters at the bottom is how it is in millimeters. These bigger ones don't. They're also older, which is why you can see it has a bend. It got used for the wrong application and bent, and then bent back. This is upside down. This just says Boya 10.5, and then that it's a USA product. These are my German needles. I am a fan of my German needles. Pearl Inox. I don't speak German well, but they're 4.5 millimeter, and I love them so much. They're coated steel, I'm pretty sure, because they're heavier than my aluminum. But they are the only ones that aren't in an inch measurement length, and I haven't measured them in millimeters, so I don't know how long they are, but I know that they're this is a 10 millimeter, or sorry, a 9-inch needle, because it's 4, can't show you, there, and 1, my needle. So this is a 9-inch needle, not that. Wait your turn, wait your turn. It'll be okay, we'll be with you in a minute. 9-inch needle. 9 plus 4 is 13-inch needle. So I have 9-inch needles here. My 7-inch needle is here. See, 2 inches shy. My 9-inch needles are mostly newer. I'm a fan. They have the number in US size and the millimeters. And you can tell the difference between brands usually by the end, the stopper here. The Boya brand needles have, as I said, the metal stopper spot welded onto the shaft of the needle. This is a Susan Bates brand, and it has this What shape would you call that? I'm not sure what shape to call that, but that is the characteristic shape of Susan Bates needle stoppers. And it's plastic. These needles are all aluminum, and they roll funny because they're bent. This is my aluminum straight needles. They are called that because they are pointed at one end, stopped at the other end, and straight. They are still straight, even though I bent some pretty badly on that one. Yikes, looks like jump rope. So these are my aluminum straight needles. The yarn slips very easily on these, regardless of what kind of yarn, and sometimes you want a bit more of a grab to your needle. If you're using something that is known to just fly off the end, you'll want to avoid aluminum needles for really slippery yarns. That's a fun noise. I'm going to put these in my magical box of magicalness. I have some plastic. As I showed you, these are plastic. These are also plastic. Some of the things that you can get are ginormous knitting needles. Ugh, they don't like to come out of the thing. So when you're knitting with these, you're wielding a stake that you could probably damage somebody with pretty badly. The end is longer than an inch, the point itself is longer than an inch, and then it goes up to the actual shaft, which is the diameter you want. And that is a massive size. It is a US 19. The largest I've ever seen is a US 50, which looks like a broom handle. And it's 15 millimeters. This one's 15 millimeters. I keep these in their sleeve because I don't have another case in which to keep the loose needles that caliber. One more material that I have for straight needles is bamboo. These are actually a really small one. It's a US size 5, 3.75 millimeters. It's a really small, and I had grand ambitions at one point. Clover doesn't put the size on the back of the nub. They embed it into the needle itself. They engrave it on the shaft. So on the back of this stopper, it does not have anything, and I added some colored paint. I thought I was going to have a pegboard and organize them very cleverly and match color to color, and it was going to be fabulous. I never did that, and so I have 2 needles that have color and none of the others do. I keep my Clover Takumi bamboo needles in their sleeve, mostly because I still have the sleeve and I like to see the sleeves, but also because it's a really quick reference. I know how long the needle is, 9 inches. I know what size the needle is, 8, 10 in US, and then in millimeters, it's very quick to see 4.5, 4, 6.5, 6. Okay, so that's why I keep mine in their packaging. The packaging has actually changed. I don't know which one's older. I want to say this vinyl is older than this plastic. The vinyl were given to me, so I don't know where they came from or why the packaging is different. These I bought. These I lost the package for. But the bamboo needles tend to have a good sharp, or a nicely rounded point that still catches the stitches nicely. Bamboo is a much more grabby material. It's still smooth. The stitches glide nicely, but they don't come flying off as one would on aluminum. Plastic is also a pretty grabby material, as is this. This next one is acrylic. I have 2 sets of acrylic knitting needles. They're straight needles because they have a stop at one end, a point at the other end, and they just are a straight line. Acrylic knitting needles tend to be grabby, so if you're using a yarn that slips, you might want to pick up some acrylic knitting needles. I can't say knitting needles for some reason. This set is missing because I honestly don't remember where I put it, and I can't find it to put it back in, which makes me a little sad, but we're not going to cry. It's important not to cry on camera. I should arrange them this way. Oh, lovely. I love it. The missing set is a light pink, or light pinkish purple. It's a beautiful color. Kind of like this, but clear. We'll get to those in a second. Wait your turn. Wait your turn. Wait your turn. It's okay. It's okay. Shh. Wait your turn. It's okay. These knitting needles themselves come prepackaged as a set, or you can get individual sets. This set goes from size 8 to 10.5. This set goes 11, 13, 15, just the odd numbers, and they end up quite big. And that's the US size. It's only 10 millimeters. The bigger ones you just saw were 15 millimeters, size 19. Those are fun to work with. Now we have double pointed needles. I only have them in the 2 materials. I have them in a bin because it's hard to keep track of them otherwise. So I have a few examples here of methods of storing your double pointed needles specifically. In the sleeve they come in, naturally. In the paper, if they come in a paper, these come in paper and these come in paper. As you can see, the 2 brands that I have in here that come in different numbers of needles. The loops and threads are aluminum double point knitting needles. They come in a set of 5. The Boyer brand, you can see through the paper, is aluminum also, and it comes in a set of 4. This is a Boyer brand set for which the paper was destroyed. As you see that it gets kind of damaged as you move the needles in and out over the course of generations. So I used an old business card that I didn't need. It was actually a sample that I got when I ordered business cards for the first time. I bent it the way you see it is bent, and then I poked holes in it with scissors and shoved the needles up in. I also used a pencil to write what size the needle is, and I was able to find that out using my Susan Bates Knit-chek tool, which is one of the best investments I've made since I started knitting. I didn't always have needles that, like my aluminum ones, have the size neatly written on the back. If you are working with double pointed needles or circular needles, which I'll show you in a minute, you absolutely have to have a way to tell what size your needle is. Aluminum needles generally don't have the size printed or engraved anywhere on the needle itself. That would really interfere with the flow of the material across the needle. The bamboo needles that I have, you can probably see through the wrapping there. It's engraved onto the bamboo itself. But because bamboo is a soft and it's wood, it can be stamped into and left with ink. You can't really stamp into aluminum and have it stay round. It tends to flatten, and then you've got a flat edge on your aluminum needle, which we don't like. The Susan Bates Knit-chek, super shiny, I apologize for the glare, has centimeter, millimeter ruler on top, inch ruler on the bottom, 2 inches on the side, and this cutout is 2 inches by 2 inches, so you can check your stitch gauge. Super handy tool. Gee, I don't know what size my needle is. I can lay it along and see which hole vanishes beneath it. So it's definitely not a 2 because I can still see quite a lot of hole underneath the 2. Can you even see? Probably not. So I poke the needle through. You want to be careful not to poke it at an angle because you can actually scratch your needle and it will eventually change the diameter of the hole, but it'll also scratch your needle and damage your needle. So you want to be careful to go straight on through, and it goes through the 1, which is good, and it does not go through the 0, so it is not a size 0, it is a size 1, which is 2 1/4 millimeters. So these are my size 1 double pointed knitting needles. They are a loops and thread set, as you can tell, because there are 5 of them, and the paper that this goes with has been shredded So I have to come up and get a new business card and make a new set. I will not be doing that in this video, but that's what I'm going to do to hold these needles once I'm done with the video. Another tricky thing that we have is a set like this. This is actually 2 sets that I've put into one container because I bought 2 sets of this. The needles bend really easily because they are so thin. But this is a set of knitting needles. Their Silverloom is the brand. It's also this is Susan Bates uses the Silverloom brand. You can't tell, but this word under here says Susan Bates. This set comes with 5 of each size, millimeters 1.5, 175, 2.0, and 225. 000, 000, 0, and 1 are the sizes of these needles. And it's 2 sets in one, and I gave myself a code because they are actually color coordinated so you can tell the difference. Green, gold, red, and blue. There you can see all the colors. Blue in the back, red in the front, gold, and green. So that way I can tell which size I'm reaching for when I'm doing my socks. Which socks mostly are done with these teeny tiny, skinny, thin, crazy small needles. There are some laces that are done, but you wouldn't use double pointed for that because it would be ridiculous. So when I can, I keep my needles in their sleeve. So I have another set of size 1s here that are a set of 4. And I have a bigger set. I need to make sleeves for these, which I haven't yet. These were given to me. So that's one way to store. I keep it in a Tupperware because that way they're not loose in the container where I store all of my needles together. The bamboo sets are sets of 5. I am a huge fan of bamboo knitting needles. They hold the stitches well. They're comfortable in the hand. I love them quite a lot. Unfortunately, knitting with bamboo needles this small feels like knitting with toothpicks. Very, very long toothpicks. And my hands are very strong and they tend to snap the bamboo needles that small. So I refuse to pay $30 for sets of bamboo needles that I'm going to snap with my big man hands, so I don't. Put those away. Put those away. Last but certainly not least are our circular knitting needles. So circular knitting needles come in many, many, many varieties. The 2 that I have here are, when I was in Korea, I bought 1 of each size of bamboo circular needle they had. The biggest one I have is 12 millimeters. You'll notice there are 0 US sizes on these because they are Korean and they don't use US sizes in Korea, just millimeters. I think the smallest one I have is 2 millimeters. That's 3, might be 3. Do I have smaller than this? No. So the smallest one I have is 3 millimeters, and it is knitting with a toothpick. It is really, really small. There are some sizes that are skipped when you use Korean or European sizes because they don't use US sizes. As you'll notice, it's 0 is 2, 1 is 2 1/4, 2 is 2 3/4. There's no 2.5 millimeter size in American sizes, only in metric. And then it goes in quarters until you get to size 6 or G on the hooks. Size 6 knitting needle is a 4 millimeter, and then it goes in 0.5 millimeters from there. And so there are sizes that you miss when you use millimeters and 0.5 millimeters down on this end. I haven't noticed a big enough difference between my 2 1/4 and my 2 1/2 to be upset by it, but I am aware that there is a difference. These have a nice long cable. It is connected by a cable. It's in this version, it's basically IV tubing that is epoxied onto the end of the needle itself. The thicker needles have thicker tubing, and the thinner needles have thinner tubing. But it's basically an IV tube, so it's very, very flexible. I can pinch it into itself basically in half, which is absolutely necessary if you're going to be doing any kind of magic loop with these. These can work for a magic loop. These absolutely cannot, because you can't, it's not flexible. You can't bend it in half tight enough. It will snap this. This is, I have no idea what this material is. It's not my favorite. These needles specifically, I can't get the curve of the cable to bend the way it ought with the curve of the end of the needle. It bends outward, so that when you lay them flat, they go away from, they go away from where they should. They should go this way with the cable coming in and being round, but it doesn't. It fights it. So they're very awkward to use, because when you do your stitches, that piece pulls your pinky finger away from where it should. So you're always having tension on your pinky finger trying to get the stitches to go right. This one's my most frustrating needle. I almost never use it. I bought it because I needed to make a hat, and you need a small 16-inch or smaller cable to make something like a hat. This was given to me. I actually enjoyed using it when I needed to use it, but it is very, very small. So it works if you need to make a hat with worsted weight yarn, but it's very, very small. I keep it because it's cute. And these I actually managed to make a sweater on once, ages and ages ago. I have since switched to using my interchangeable needles for almost everything. I have an interchangeable aluminum set and an interchangeable bamboo set, which I love both of them. I'm not going to say which one's my very favorite, because bamboo is. And aluminum gets jealous. I like the cables that I have in my bamboo set, I'm not going to lie. If I were to get a set for aluminum that had a better cable, I might change my favorite. They're both amazing. So this today was my how to tell what you've got in your knitting box lesson. Susan Bates Knit-chek, not sponsored. I just happen to love this product. I have it, I keep it, I use it. It is perfect for telling what size needle you have in your hand, as long as it's bigger than a 0. If it's smaller than a 0, you have to get calipers, or just pray that the color still matches what the store sells. Which is why I have a double set of those rainbow colored ones. I hope you learned a lot today about different knitting needles, different sizes of knitting needles, different styles of knitting needles, and all of the wonderful terminology of knitting needles, I think. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. If you have questions, comments, please keep your rude remarks to yourself, right? All right. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.